あの頃はみんな入学したばっかりで、青崎がどんな性格か誰も知らなかった。あいつ外見は文句なしに美人だからな。そりゃ男どもは狂気乱舞したもんさ。
Little did they know that soon after they would go crazy for an entirely different reason.
4月5月はもう上を下への大騒ぎだよ。あの時ばかりは上級生も下級生もなかったな。野郎同士の牽制、共闘、果ては決闘まで。まあよくも騒いだもんさ。青崎に近寄るだけでも大変だったんだぜ。
なんでそんなよくわからない事態になるんだ？
そりゃ青崎は一人きり、命知らずな野郎は延べ100人ほどいたからだよ。一人一人青崎とランチしても3ヶ月かかるだろ。だからまずは男同士でつまんねえ暗闘があったのさ。まあいい。わからねえならそこは飛ばそう。所詮負け犬どもの話だしな。でな、そんなどうでもいい戦いを勝ち残った奴らは列なして1年の女に言い寄ったわけだ。青崎はあれでなんていうか、相手のなけなしの誠意じゃなくてあれか、勇気、そういうのを無視できずに認めちまうやつだからな。言い寄ってくる相手を可能な限り丁寧に断ってた。が中にはそれで勘違いしちまうやつもいてよ。3年のある野郎がこれは脈ありと見て青崎に何度も言い寄ったんだよ。多分そいつ頭がおかしかったんだ。今にして思うとそうとしか思えん。
Incidentally, Tobimaru decided to gloss over the fact that this student was also the former student council president.
学園ばかりか、青崎の家まで押しかけたそうでな。あまりにしつこいんで青崎も堪忍袋の尾が切れたんだろう。ちょっと口にするのははばかられる方法で振ったんだよ。結果そいつは自分から他校に転入希望したばかりか、三崎町からも逃げ出しちまって、青崎も1ヶ月ばかり自宅謹慎を食らった。世に言う血の公会堂事件だ。詳しく知りたけりゃ本人はまずいな。新聞部にでも行け。あそこの部長は命知らずだから、聞けば面白がって教えてくれる。
飛び丸、その具体的な表現を恋に避けてないか？
Ist wahrscheinlich besser so.
仕方ねえだろ。理事長の息子だろうがなんだろうが、怖いものは怖えし、高校ぐらいは無事卒業しとかねえとな。うちの女子の制服見るたびに規制を上げるトラウマなんて持ちたくねえよ。
Sojiro tilted his head to the side in confusion. Tobimaru had lost him with that comment.
まあいい。それよりなんで青崎なんかがいいんだよ、宗次郎。
He tilted his head again, this time to the other side.
おい、お前本当に青崎が好きなのか？単に胸がドキドキ言ってるだけなら、それは恋じゃなくて恐怖だってオチもあるぜ。いくらその字がぼんやりでも理由ってもんがあるだろう。
He tilted his head even further. What Tobimaru was saying sounded off, but Sojiro decided not to press the matter. All the more because he found many of his own emotions towards Aoko Aozaki to be incomprehensible.
そうだな、おかしい。俺はあまり彼女を知らないのにね。
That was because they had not truly spoken to each other since the day she showed him around. Every time Soichiro tried to talk to her, she immediately got up and left. As fate would have it, they ended up working together that recent Sunday, but made only idle chatter on the way back.
けど飛び丸、君は知らないだけなんだ。時々なんだが、誰かの視線を感じて振り返ってみると、いつ失敗するかを心配して見ている人がいる。飛び丸の言う通り、ただ廊下で俺を見かけて単に監視していただけなのかもしれない。本当は俺のことなんて気にせず素通りしたいのかもしれない。けどどんな種類であれ彼女の心配は本物だ。それにここが一番大事だと思うんだけど、実際の話、青崎のそういうところのおかげで俺は助かっていたりするんだ。
His tone was measured and sincere. Tobimaru sighed with a tinge of regret. If not for those words, he could have introduced Jochiro to a more suitable girl with whom he could have lived out the rest of his school days in peace. He never went to such lengths for his other friends. Generally speaking, if it was of some benefit to him, he was unafraid of exploiting another. If they were of no use, he didn't bother getting involved with them. That was how Tobimaru Tsukichi operated. Soichiro happened to be the type of person who provided no benefit to Tobimaru, yet somehow sparked in him a desire to help. It was not that of friendship that completely alien to him. He just did not have many people he felt that close to. So if Soichiro had really fallen for Aoko, it was not his place as a friend to try to change his mind.
やれやれ、結局惚れてるやつには理由なんていらねえんだな。
そんなことはない。理由なら一つある。彼女を一目見た時に綺麗だなって思ったぞ。
ん？
Tobimaru's shoulder slumped.
なんだ、あんだけ恥ずかしいセリフ言っといて、要は外見に惚れてますな。結局見てくれかよ、宗次郎。
綺麗なものに見とれるのはいいことじゃないのか？自分を綺麗に見せる努力をしているんだから、外見から内面を判断するのはそんなおかしな話じゃないと思う。
That sounded like a sophism to Tobimaru, but he had no counterpoint to offer.
しょうがねえ。分かったよ。この話はもうやめよう。その字が誰をてめえの女にするか、俺の知ったことじゃねえし。
Now, about the one major thing that Tobimaru had been mistaken about this whole conversation. Namely, that Soichiro was not head over heels in love with Aoko and hoped to go steady with her. He merely liked her as a person. Nobody could have foreseen the massive calamity that would be caused by this little simple misunderstanding.
だがよ、一つだけ忠告しておくぜ、宗次郎。青崎は喧嘩をした相手だろうと別に嫌うわけじゃない。逆に言えば親切にしたって別に好かれるわけでもない。いい例が俺だ。
He spoke with a pained sigh, as if opening old wounds from the past.
そうか、詳しく。
おう、昔な、あいつがあんまりに独善的だったんで、つい手を挙げかけちまったことがある。
What?
半年前の夏だ。1年もあいつと生徒会やってたもんだから、俺も女っつうより戦友って気になっててな。つい勢いで平手打ちをしようと右手を上げた。我ながら4番バッターも角也という腰のひねり。
He had a distant look in his eyes as his words trailed off.
翌日になってこりゃ完全に敵扱いされたなと覚悟して生徒会室に行ってみりゃ青崎はいつも通りだったで以来あいつと俺は会長と副会長で収まってる
Soshiro sighed at his story. He then said, with absolute confidence,
今の話を総合すると君は単にのろけたいのか
clearly he had missed the point entirely.
なわけあるか今の話のどこに甘酸っぱい要素があんだよ俺としちゃあいつを女として見なくなった決定的な事件だったんだがね
なんだ違うのか
A look of disappointment flitted across Sojiro's face. Tobimaru revised his opinion of him. Sojiro was something of a simpleton, but there was something more about him that Tobimaru could not quite place.
とにかくだ俺が言いたいのは青崎青子の好き嫌いの基準ってのは普通じゃないってことだいいことをすれば好かれる気に入らないことをすれば嫌われるってわけじゃねえんだよあのお姫様は
Soshiro answered that he would keep it in mind as he looked to the clock. They had been talking for a while, and lunch was almost over.
もう君からの話はないか
あ初めからねえよそんなの
Why had Tobimaru even brought him here in the first place? Sojiro tilted his head in wonder, but shook it off to deal with the more pressing matters at hand.
よしじゃあもう少し付き合ってくれ飛び丸に聞きたいことがあったんだ
Tobimaru sat up straight, having never seen Sojiro's face look so serious before. Sojiro set aside his rice ball and cleared his throat.
実は昨日こんなことがあって
He spoke solemnly. And as carefully as possible, he recounted what had occurred the night before.
しずきくんいる
It was 10 to 12, and lunchtime was quickly coming to an end. Her face popped into Class C, as lively as ever, as if it were an everyday occurrence. Aoko Aozaki announced her presence. While Aoko wasn't part of Class C, she didn't let it bother her as she casually entered the classroom. In contrast, the baby birds, who had been so noisily chirping while eating lunch, quickly quieted and began to rearrange their seats.
どういう意味よそれ
She bristled internally before looking around the room. She could not see the male student she had come here to find. He hardly stood out, so she thought he might be hidden in a corner somewhere, but that appeared to not be the case.
有里くん出席番号12番のしずきくんは
Aoko kept her tone professional.
俺しずきならさっき飛び丸殿下が連れて行ったよ
Wieso denn ihn alle Denker? The boy was shocked that she actually knew his name. One might think that the reason students referred to Tobimaru Tsukishi by a royal title was because he was the chairman's son, but it was because he actually acted like royalty. In fact, the vice president was said to have taken a liking to the title.
飛び丸があいつしずきくんと仲いいの
She seemed surprised. The class seemed surprised at her surprise.
いいも悪いも築地くんが男子と仲良く話してるのって今まで見たことなかったよ私たち。あ、木の実くんはバカだから別だけど。
そうだよな。初めは殿下もあんまり話してなかったけど、3日もしたら楽しそうに口喧嘩してたもんな。ま、しずき相手に突っ張っても仕方ないじゃん。あいつ変だけどいいやつだし。
そうよね。いい人だもんね、宗十郎くん。
Having recomposed themselves, Class C started chatting again. Aoko listened for a bit before turning around and leaving the class with a later. All the Sojuro talk finished as quickly as it had started. Oh, wir bekommen's nicht zu hören? Lunchtime was coming to a close in the student council room. Sojuro, having told his story, was smiling in satisfaction. Tobimaru, still sitting across from him, was frowning.
さあ、感想を聞かせてくれ。
Sojuro told his yarn as best as he could. Tobimaru fingered his brow as if he was angry or concerned.
なあ、宗の字。お前、人をバカにできるほど器用なやつじゃねえよな。
失礼な。器用な方だぞ、俺は。
His response only confirmed Tobimaru's suspicions. It had to be one of two possible conclusions. That what Sojuro had just told him was true, or that Sojuro was so tired that he must have been hallucinating at the time. Tobimaru sincerely hoped it was the latter.
宗十郎、率直に言って俺はお前が気に入っている。嘘のない人間なんてのは人間じゃねえ。俺は人間嫌いだからそんなお前さんが気に入ってたりするんだが、そんなやつまで馬鹿げたことを言い出したら俺は明日から何を頼りに昼飯を食えばいいんだ。
学食で食べればいいんじゃないか。
Hearing his suggestion, Tobimaru's face darkened.
わかった。はっきり言おう。それは幻覚だ。幽霊の正体見たり枯れ尾花ってやつだろうさ。それでも納得いかないってんならいい精神科を紹介してやる。
それが君の感想か。よし、ならいいんだ。
As bitter as Tobimaru's words might have sounded to most, Sojuro swallowed them whole.
そりゃ俺だって神隠しの類だと思ったよ。けど都会じゃもしかしてそれもありなのかもしれないだろう。確かめたかったのはそこなんだ。
Satisfied, Sojuro finished off his last rice ball and neatly folded the cloth.
おい、すると何か？お前は都会の人間は口から火を吹いたり腕が伸びたりするのが普通だと思ったのか？
まあ普通じゃないけど特別でもないんじゃないかと思ったんだ。ここは山にないものが溢れている何でもありの場所だ。だからそれぐらいやってのける人だってもしかしているのかなと。
That his face was as serious as it was made Tobimaru made Tobimaru realize just how big a culture shock Sojuro must have been experiencing. Living up in the mountains with no electricity, in a place where the night sky was as it always had been, where humans were just one more organism in nature's garden. It makes sense that those conditions would create a boy like him. The idea of children growing up so pure was an appealing one, but maybe it was natural to forgo civilization when your population was so small. Or perhaps it was so simple a world that excessive knowledge was deemed irrelevant. It was precisely because city life offered him so much that was impossible up till now that he had come to the conclusion that anything was possible here.
安心しろ。確かにこっちにはタチの悪い奴らばっかりだけどな。そんな魔法使いみたいな奴はいねえよ。
Was ist letzte Nacht passiert?
そうだといいんだけど。
But Sojiro seemed unsure. And on Tobimaru's part, there were things to Sojiro's story that he found hard to swallow. Whether true or not, the incident Sojiro had described was disturbing.
まあ、事の真偽というか、どんな間違いでそう見えたかは置いておいてだ。結果だけ見れば、うちの生徒が夜の公園で人を殺したってことになる。しかも双方を控えめに表現しても普通じゃねえ。
Was? As the newcomer to town, Sojiro assumed that everyone his age was a student at this school. For better or worse, he was right.
一人は火炎放射器を持って、もう一人は、まあなんだ、なぎなたでも持ち出したのか、刃物らしきものが何メートルも伸びたときた。
Sojiro bobbed his head up and down as he listened to the disbelief in Tobimaru's voice. Hearing it repeated by someone else, he could see how someone might think he was taking them for a ride.
正気を疑うな。尋常じゃないぞその話。
宗十郎、お前実は俺をからかってんだろ。
いや全く。けどまあ都会にはそんな人間はいないんだろ。なら飛び丸の言う通り夢でも見てたんだ。ここのところアルバイトと試験が重なって辛くて。
Winter break was just around the corner, and the end of term exams were but a week away. Both were proving formidable opponents for Sojiro.
俺は基本ができてないから人の倍程度の勉強じゃ追いつけない。ほら勉強ばかりしているとノイローゼをするんだろ。
そりゃするんじゃなくてなるものだが、何にせよやりすぎ飲みすぎはよくねえわな。
減らしてはいるんだけどね。年末ってアルバイトを休む人も多くてその代行も頼まれがちだし。
He shrugged helplessly. It was obvious from his words that he had been busy. Even if he was not going crazy, lack of sleep could have caused him to daydream, even if this all did go down in the middle of the night.
なんだか大変そうだな、宗十郎。
ああ、実はかなり参ってる。
Sojiro nodded with a pained look on his face. What was strange, however, was that he did not look the least bit tired.
泣き言言わねえのは感心するけどな。お前、新郎は顔に出ないたちか？
そりゃ新郎はどこも痛まないからね。
As he answered, Sojiro looked up at the clock on the wall. Lunchtime was almost over.
飛び丸、時間だ。
ああ、もうそんなに経ったか。気にせず先に行ってていいぜ。
Sojiro watched as Tobimaru made a gesture that seemed to lament the life of a student council member. His eyes looked as if they were looking at a piece of art and not understanding its value.
授業をサボれる身分っていうのは羨ましいな。そういうの飛び丸が嫌いな手抜きじゃないのか？
そりゃ誤解も甚だしい。俺の欠席は手抜きじゃねえ。特権ってやつだと言ったろ。
The vice president angrily defended himself as he stood up. The transfer student merely gazed at him unfazed.
おいおい、あれだけ説明したのに全然分かってなかったのか？しょうがねえ。まず座れ。いいか、その字。常人を上回る英気と幸運を兼ね備えながら座することなく精進してきた俺でもここを卒業しちまえば裸一貫になっちまうんだぞ。 ひでえ話だ。てめえの家柄を活用できんのはあと1年ちょいだけなんだぜ。これの一体どこが羨ましいってんだ。普通一生続くはずの親の七光ってやつが俺の場合はたった3年間しかねえんだからな。となりゃ有効なうちに使っておかなきゃもったいなくておちおち眠ってもいられねえ。ああ、嫌だ嫌だ。何が嫌かってバカどもとガン首並べて金勘定するのが嫌だ。たく嫉妬渦巻く大人の世界じゃ俺のオブラートみたいな心なんてパックリ飲まれて溶けちまうこと受け合いだろうさ。
Der Kerl hört sich selbst gern reden. While he must have been joking, Sojiro took his tone to be completely sincere. He listened as he envied Tobimaru's ability to be so open about his feeling. From his frame of reference, there was nothing he could do but take Tobimaru for his word. When
あら、そんな権利なんて留年すればいくらでも引き延ばせるのに。なんなら協力してあげましょうか。このわ
Ach Mist. The door to the student council room flew open, washing away Sojiro's half-hearted response to his friend. This frosty statement destroyed the warm atmosphere of the room, and it also marked the abrupt end to Tobimaru Tsukichi's reign here.
いや、いい。自分の夢は自分の力だけで叶えようと常々思ってるんだ。
そなら今みたいな恥ずかしいこと力説しないでね。廊下にまで聞こえてたわよ、副会長さん。
Not missing a beat, Aoko Aosaki stepped inside the room. Her dark hair was slightly disheveled, as if she had been running. Her gaze missed the sitting Sojiro entirely and was focused completely on the ranting vice president.
頑張れ、飛び丸。
Sojiro quietly got up to head back to his classroom.
割と薄情なんだな、お前。
Tobimaru grumbled in front of Aoko.
だって時間がない。
だからそういうのが薄情とだな。
He cut himself off. Aoko briefly shifted her gaze to Sojiro.
時間がないのは私も同じよ。あなたにはいつも振り回される。
Not a complaint. It was her honest opinion.
なんだ、要件は総十郎かよ。
安心なさい。あなたにもあるから。
Her eyes shimmered with a murderous glee. It was slightly different from the more sullen gaze to which Tobimaru had grown accustomed. For whatever reason, Aoko's mood seemed worse than usual.
しずきくん、あなた、走るのと泳ぐの、どっちが好き？
Was ist mit diesen Fragen? Aoko asked abruptly. Sojiro frowned a little before saying he was fine with either one.
ダメよ。一つにして。
泳ぐ方かな。けどどうして？
あなたがまだどこの部にも所属してないから。
Oh my god. A succinct reply. One that left no room for Sojiro to object.
うちの校則読んだわよね。生徒はただ一人の例外もなく、部活動に参加しなくてはならない。正直どうかと思う校則だけど、決まりは決まりだから。
そんな無茶な。悪いけどそこまでの暇はないんだ。
でしょうね。
An equally terse response. She was typically to the point, but Tobimaru got the impression that she was expressly trying to keep her interaction with Sojiro short. They stared at each other in silence. Tobimaru stood breathlessly silent on the sidelines until Sojiro broke the impasse.
青崎は分かってると思ってた。 あ、いや違う。きっと分かっているんだな。うん。だからそこが強いんだろうね。
Soichiro stood up from his seat. He walked past Aoko and into the hallway.
それ明日からでいいんだろ？
しずきくんがいいならね。
He did his best to force a smile before leaving the student council room. While watching the events play out, Tobimaru found himself deeply impressed with Soichiro. He could tell from Aoko's behavior that she was trying to get a rise out of Soichiro. Soichiro, on the other hand, was none the wiser to what Aoko was doing, so he simply went about his way. To Tobimaru, it was hard to believe that Soichiro had not taken offense. All he observed was the performance of a lifetime in Soichiro as he maintained a poker face.
いや、でも何が強いんだろうな、会長。
He looked at Aoko curiously. Aoko stood completely still, staring at the wall.
青崎？
Aoko showed no response.
おい、会長。青崎。青子女子。おい、聞いてんのかよ、青崎青子。
さいはね、青を呼ぶな。
Her fury echoed across the student council room. It was a beautiful sound that could be heard into the hallway and made Tobimaru's strand from earlier pale in comparison.
やかましい。うるせえのはてめえも同じだ。
Perhaps her shouting was still ringing in his ears, or he was just the type to answer and a shout with a shout. But he shot back reflexively.
そんなんだから男の一人もできねえんだよ、お前は。ほら、目覚めたか？
別にあなたの声は聞こえてた。煩わしかったから無視してただけよ。黙らせるの面倒だし。
てめえな、俺はカカなんかか、おい。
コミュニケーションが成立しない点で言えば、あっちのがまだ上品よね。
ほう、その心は？
お互い何を言ってるかわからない。意味のない会話なら仰せみたいなものでしょ。
Based on that statement, Aoko must have been under the assumption that dating is the act of two lovers whispering nonsense to each other.
問題は、お前にとって意味のある会話ってのがどの程度の価値かってことだが、いつになくきついじゃねえか、青崎。
ちょっとね。今愛嬌振りまける状況じゃないのよ。
不思議だ。この2年間で青崎の愛嬌なんてものは見たことがないんだが。
飛び丸のいない時に振りまいてたの。
そうかよ。やっぱりあの時のこと恨んでるんだろう、生徒会長さんはよ。
There was only one thing that Tobimaru could be talking about. The incident that occurred in the student council room this past summer.
ずいぶんと昔の話じゃないそれ。そんなどうでもいいことに容量を使っちゃもったいないわよ。ただでさえ脳の覚醒部分が少ないのに。
As the conversation wore on, Aoko's murderous aura began to fade, and her sharp gaze gave way to a calmer demeanor rarely seen from her. It was quite possible that nobody besides Tobimaru had ever seen this side of her at school before.
ご忠告どうも。俺だってあんなことは忘れてよ。たださっきその字がバカなこと言いやがるからつい思い出しちまったんだよ。くそ、考えてみりゃ場所まで一緒じゃねえか。
Despite his ranting, his face betrayed a touch of nostalgia. Aoko, on the other hand, was scowling.
ちょっと待って。あの話彼にしたの？
おう、俺がてめえに なんで会長になんか立候補したのよ。あんたは副会長って顔でしょ、どう見ても。なんて挑発されて生涯最高の月をしたところまでな。
Aoko let out a sigh, as if relieved that Tobimaru had not told Soshiro the rest of the story. Even she wasn't sure.
あれは確かにびっくりするぐらいいい月だった。思わず体が反応しちゃったものね。ところで私そんなこと言ったっけ？
言った。しかも俺が保健室に運ばれたのをこれ幸いと強引に副会長にしやがった。
Since that day, Tobimaru had served as the vice president to the person who'd usurped the role from him.
いいけどな。俺に会長職は合わねえって分かったし、副会長の方が性に合ってやがる。会長なんてやってたら危うく親父みたいな野郎になってただろうしよ。
プライド高い分できることは全部やるからね、飛び丸は。会長職に先進するあまり気がついたら優等生になってたあんたも見たかったけど。
やめてくれ、ゾッとしねえ。猫かぶるのはお前だけで十分だ。
Tobimaru shooed Aoko away in an annoying pest, like an annoying pest. It was a typical example of the crude verbal abuse they exchanged on a daily basis, with a wittiness that only two longtime foes could manage.
で、なんでそんな話したのよ。
は？
半年前のここの事件をなんで彼に話したのよ。
ああ、そっちか。いや、あいつがバカなこと口走ったからなんだが。
He stopped himself before he said any more. He knew better than to let slip the fact that Soshiro had a thing for Aoko. Everyone knew guys didn't sell each other out like that, even if it was all, in truth, a misunderstanding.
それよりさっきのはないんじゃねえのか、青崎。お前、宗十郎に恨みでもあんの
？7日以上前の恨みを引きずるほど私はお姫様じゃないつもりだけど。
He wanted to retort that she was more like a queen than a princess. But he'd come to know her too well over the past 2 years to dig himself into a hole like that.
恨みはないね。それにしちゃ恋に喧嘩売ってただろ。確かに調子の狂うやつだが、あいつほどいいやつはいねえだろうに。おい待て、なんだその足元のシロアリを見るかのような態度は。
別にあんたまでそのセリフを言うのかって心底から見避け果てただけよ。まあいっか。いいやつ、いい人、結構じゃない？喧嘩を売る相手としちゃ上等だわ。誰も憎んであげないなら私ぐらいそうしないとね。
Was ist das für eine Logik? She said casually, having regained her composure.
しないとねって、お前。
Tobimaru could not follow her reasoning at all. Tobimaru was used to Aoko's erratic trains of thought, but hating Sochiro for no reason seemed needlessly cruel. His friend's naive and innocent face came to mind. And then he blurted.
けど、宗十郎は青崎が好きなんだぜ。それでも嫌いなのか？
Oh my god. His vow of silence had lasted not even 2 minutes.
いや、今のはな、青。
He tried to take it back, but it was too late. She had heard his words loud and clear. All he could hope for now was that she would take it well.
そりゃそうでしょ。好き嫌いは誰にもあるし。けどこればかりはね、彼が私と仲良くしたいって言っても私は嫌いなんだから仕方ない。
stone cold Aoko. Tobimaru found himself filled with indignation at how detached Aoko was being.
いや、そんなお友達感覚の話じゃなくてだな。そういう好き嫌いじゃなくて、その字は本気でお前に惚れてるって言ったんだよ。
He shouted, his face the embodiment of sincerity. Aoko gave him a blank stare. It was the face of someone who had lost their wallet hours earlier and was only just realizing it now. The first instant of doubt that ushers in the reality of the situation. But an instant is all it was.
で
She answered coolly, as if she had no idea why it should matter to her at all.
でときたか。鬼でもなけりゃ悪魔だな。お前って女は。よかろう。聞こえなかったのならもう一度言ってやる。
Oh my god, halt einfach die Klappe. Tobimaru gave up any pretense of masculine solidarity and fired back hard.
いいわよそんなのつまらないもの
She ruthlessly cut him off. Thinking of the boys who still harbored unrequited love for Aoko, Tobimaru tried hard to come up with a name befitting the demoness in front of him.
なるほどねそれでさっきの話に結びつくわけだへえ柄にもなく友達思いじゃない殿下ってことは聞くも無残語るも無情っていう私の噂話教えてあげたんでしょ
She laughed as a fiendish smile adorned her face. Tobimaru repented to God, whoever and wherever he or she might be, for ever bringing up Aoko's love life.
飛び丸にしちゃ正しい判断ね褒めてあげるからどんな話をしたのか聞きたいな私
She was smiling, but Tobimaru wished she'd at least try to hide the bloodlust.
代表作とここでの事件を2つばかり。
Aoko nodded with satisfaction as she listened to Tobimaru's hesitant answer.
こういう時噂話って便利よねうるさいのを追っ払ってくれるからでもそんな話を考えなしで広めたら大変だからこれからは気をつけてね
Had this been in writing, the chillingly sweet tone of her words could have been signed with a heart. Whether angry or happy, Aozaki spoke in a disturbingly cute manner when she was in a heightened emotional state. Tobimaru took note of this new discovery, aware that it did nothing to get him out of this situation.
ああ、俺も命は惜しいからな。口はもう滑らねえよ。けどよ、青崎。本気で宗十郎が嫌いなのか？
He knew that it was a topic he would be better off avoiding, but he tried asking anyway. The bonds between men at times shine more beautiful than a pearl.
まあ好きじゃないから嫌いっていうわけじゃないけど私が彼のことを嫌う理由は自分でもわからないだからダメなのねきっと
Perhaps to placate Tobimaru, Aoko paused in contemplation before she answered. Giving it a moment without immediately blurting out a response meant that not even he could complain.
そうか。まあ、そういうことならしょうがねえか。何しろ、きれいさっぱり感情論だ。お互い理由もなく好きと嫌いじゃ、手を貸す隙間もねえわけだし。
Thinking that would be the end of it, Tobimaru looked up towards the ceiling and silently apologized to Sojiro. However, his final sentence appeared to have piqued Aoko's interest.
待って今のどういう意味
Her fox shear had vanished. Failing to pick up on this, Tobimaru answered nonchalantly.
いや、あいつもさ、青崎に惚れた理由がわからないなんて言いやがってな。まあ、違ったか。理由なんてないなんて意味だったかな。
Tobimaru was still in disbelief that Sochiro had been charmed by Aoko's appearance, so he purposely left that part out.
理由はないですって。
ああ、なんで俺がいくらお前の噂話をしても無駄だった。天津さえなんて言ってたかな。あ、そうそう、理由はどうあれ青崎の心配は本物なんだとか、自分はそれで助かってるとか、俺なんかには言えないセリフだったのは確かだね。とはっきりしてんのは他の野郎どもと違って、噂を聞いても手を引く素振りなんざみじんもなかったってことだけ。
Tobimaru finally noticed the shift in Aoko's demeanor. She was scowling at the wall. She glared at it in silence like it was their worst enemy, and this continued for several minutes.
何それ。さっきといいそれといい、どこかで聞いたようなことばっかり。
What the fuck? So great was her ire that the gnashing of her teeth was audible. The irritation seethed until it reached the point that Aoko forgot Tobimaru was even in the room. Tobimaru looked heavenward for forgiveness, sensing that he'd brought further calamity down upon Sochiro's head.
少しわかったわ。なんであいつが気に食わないのか。
Tobimaru looked away as if to indicate that he'd rather not know, but Aoko ignored him and began to grumble venomously.
あいつ、私が嫌いなやつと言動が似てるのよ。誰彼構わずいい人扱いされるところとか、妙にふわふわしてるところとか、いちいち私の勘に触るところとか。
Glancing idly up the clock, Tobimaru thought that last part just sounded like misplaced anger. And that was that. 1 o'clock had come and gone.
わかった。もういい。この話をした俺が悪かった。で、俺に用ってのはなんだよ。言っとくけど、もう授業始まってるぜ。
え？授業って、なんで？いつ？
いや、さっきその字が出てってから、青崎がギラーンって壁にらんでた時にチャイムが鳴ったんだよ。いいのか、生徒会長。5次元目ばっくれて。
いいわけないでしょ。なんで黙ってんのよ、あんたは。
She looked like she was on the verge of tears as she shouted and pulled out at his necktie. Tobimaru raised his hands in mock surrender, a gesture reserved only for the true victor.
蚊の方がエレガントなんて言いやがった仕返しだ。思い知るがいい。男の純情を踏みにじったり焼き殺したりするエリート悪魔め。
相変わらず細かく根に持つ男。言動には言動で返しなさいよね、卑怯者。
She tightened his necktie around his neck with a yank. The vice president smiled a thuggish grin, as if her reaction made his victory that much sweeter.
お前の古典が破滅に向かっているのは周知の事実。そして A 組の5次元目は言うまでもない。藤代のばあさん。青崎のこと嫌ってるしな。
Fujishiro had one of the longest tenures at the school, so it was only natural that she would be in charge of teaching the classics.
さあ、こんなところで俺のネクタイを引っ張る余裕があるのなら、急いで自分の教室に立ち返るがいい。 情けだ。別に止めやしねえよ。
くそ、あんたなんかにはめられるなんて。このまま死んでしまえ。
She choked him even harder with his necktie. As Aoko put words into action and mercilessly strangled Tobimaru, he saw his life flash before his eyes.
いや、待て待て、本当に死んじまうだろうが。今ならまだ間に合う。10分過ぎたら遅刻から欠席扱いだぞ。
Aoko glanced up at the clock. It was still only 1:07. Her road was from the student council room on the second floor to the Class A classroom on the third floor. If she ran, she could make it.
命拾ったわね、飛び丸。
Aoko clicked her tongue disappointedly. What disturbed Tobimaru was that it didn't sound like an empty threat.
あと放課後、ここにいて。頼みたいことがあるのは本当なんだから。
She was halfway out of the room before she even finished her sentence. Finally, all alone, Tobimaru closed the open door, locked it, and slumped into a chair.
たく。ああしてる分には楽しいやつなんだけどよ。あ。
He leaned back in the creaky folding chair and let out a sigh. The weather outside was beautiful, but the sunlight waned early in the winter. Before long, daylight would fade, and the unheated student council room would grow colder and colder. All of the good equipment, like the heater, had ended up in the main office, so he had no choice but to settle in for a chilly afternoon.
こんな天気が続けばいいんだがね。天気予報じゃまた雲行き怪しいって話だが。
After his somewhat wieso habe ich so große Probleme mit dem Wort? Suggestive monologue, Tobimaru's mind drifted. He idly wondered to himself whether Sojiro was an overcast day or a clear day sort of guy, but no answers came. The school day over, Sojiro headed straight to his job. While the school had approved his jobs at the Chinese restaurant and fish market in Misaki's shopping district, there was other work he hadn't mentioned to them. And it was not because he knew that they would complain at him working too many, but rather because of the illicit nature of one job in particular. Today his workplace was a Penshiku parlor in front of Yashirogi Station. Sojiro changed out his school uniform and into a black fox tuxedo uniform, then began cleaning the storefront. Yashirogi was the jewel of Misaki City, a busy place, a vast assortment of commercial centers and shopping arcades. Where there were people en masse, there were products made en masse. A romantic might describe it as a place of joy. A realist would note the free enterprise, and a cynic would point at all the garbage. Local authorities had attempted to beautify Yashirogi, but there was one basic tenet of society they could not overcome. This establishment was the embodiment of that rule. Business such as this attracted the dregs of society, and as such, the front of the parlor had to be cleaned several times a day. Sojiro stood outside in the winter's cold, sweeping used-up cigarettes butts, picking up discarded flyers, and tossing empty cans into the trash. Something about it must have reminded him of mountain life, because he cheerfully finished the job with ease. After making sure the storefront was acceptably clean, he returned to the inside of the parlor, where it was nice and warm. Blinding lights deafened sounds, and the oppressive odor of tobacco assaulted him as he passed through the parlor on his way to the office.
店長、外回りの掃除終わりました。
はい、ご苦労様。それでいいかな。2階の40番台のお客さんの様子見てきてくれない？どうも懐に飲んでそうなんだよね。あ。
His boss was a good-natured man who used to work at a desk shop. The reason he employed someone like Soichiro, even though he was clearly a student, was not because he admired him for working his way through school. It was because all of the other employees were scary and intimidating, and he wanted at least one employee who was not.
いいんですか？トイレの掃除まだですけど。
いいのいいの。なんかね、カメラの死角にいるんでいまいち確証取れないの。そうちゃん、今のところ的中率 100% でしょ。様子見てきてくれないかな。
Hearing that, Soichiro put away his cleaning equipment and headed upstairs. It was a typical large-scale Panchiko parlor with 2 floors. It prided itself on being a local establishment that was satisfied with taking the locals' money little by little without resorting to more exploitative means. But regardless of the parlor's intentions, its customers were not so scrupulous. Among them were casual players, professional gamblers, and cheaters looking to profit by exploiting whatever loopholes they could find. Of particular prevalence was a device developed in the mid-80s that could disrupt a machine's circuitry from the outside and make it much easier to get what was called a 777 jackpot. As much as the parlor wanted to deny these cheaters entry, it needed to present hard evidence of cheating, or risk losing customers. Particularly in the service industry, innocent until proven guilty was not a rule taken lightly. As a result, they could only punish the customers they caught in the act. Such cheaters were known as gotoshi, a slice of society which Soichiro knew nothing about. What he did know was that they were inconveniencing his employer and violating their rules. He went upstairs. The radio and game machine sounds on the second floor were quieter than the cacophony downstairs. There were 100 game machines on the ground floor and over 80 on the second. While there were some empty seats here and there, it was a solid evening turnout. The machine mentioned by his boss was in the center aisle. Soichiro nonchalantly leaned back against the wall and watched the customer hit the jackpot over and over again. The second he saw her, his guts told him that she was not cheating. He still was not sure what made someone a master swindler, but if it meant they were special, this woman certainly fit that description. It was almost as if he could feel the luck emanating from her. As the customer looked on, she silently turned the handle again and again. She appeared older than Soichiro. She wore a green form-fitting one-piece dress. A pair of stockings covered her legs. Her slender legs were gracefully crossed and her elegance suited a painting better than a casino. Her dark reddish hair was cut short in a bob, perfectly framing her stylish spectacles and crimson lips. Truth to be told, something was off about this picturesque beauty, ringing jackpot over and over again. 4 boxes worth of Panchiko balls sat at her feet, and her winning streak showed no sign of abating. She looked bored as her slender porcelain fingers lifted a long cigarette to her lips.
なんかどっかで